we are. I am Fon Minviel. I work with the Bureau of Health Education in the Ministry of Health and Wellness. This program I usually host with my colleague Louisa Wilson, who happens to be on vacation. Louisa, good morning. Enjoy. I hope you're enjoying. As the saying goes, patchwe kawanti vacances like la vie plus las. Okay? I hope she'll be able to listen in at least for a little bit with us this morning. Today we do have with us a guest. Before I introduce him, I would just like to share a little bit of information that came out in a press statement last week concerning gastroenteritis. The Ministry of Health put out a press statement on gastroenteritis in St. Lucia. Gastroenteritis is usually caused by bacteria and viruses and so on. And some of the key symptoms are vomiting, diarrhea, and some people may have been experiencing that so far, vomiting, diarrhea, and so on. One of the key things we have to remember is that hygiene is key when we're dealing with those sorts of illnesses that are spread by bacteria and viruses. Based on what they have seen so far, our cases seem to be related to viruses and bacteria. So as I said, diarrhea, vomiting, nausea, stomach pain, headache, muscle aches, all of those are associated with gastroenteritis. You can get gastroenteritis. It can be transmitted directly if you have direct contact with an infected person by consuming contaminated water, touch indirectly if you touch contaminated objects and then you don't wash your hands. So some of the key infection prevention control measures that we have been speaking about for a long time when it comes to the cold, the flu, COVID, and all of that. These are some of the same things that you need to practice in order to reduce your risk of getting gastroenteritis. So you need to pay attention to the source of your food. You know, sometimes we're out there and we're hungry and we just buy anywhere and we have no idea what the hygiene practices of the people preparing the food is like. We have no idea what the kitchen looks like and that sort of thing. Practice good hand hygiene. When we say hand hygiene, we mean wash your hands regularly, soap, running water, 20 seconds. And we spoke about that so much with COVID. I feel by now that all St. Lucians know exactly how the hands should be washed. True. We don't do it vai. Try to avoid eating undercooked foods. You know, in St. Lucia, we tend to overcook our foods. But sometimes when you go out there and you buy off the grill or out of an establishment, it may not be fully cooked. Pork. So yes, a lot of the meats that are prepared sometimes. I remember buying some kidney once and it wasn't well done. So we need to pay attention to all of that. If there is an infected person in your household, try to avoid using the same cutlery, the same utensils. If you are the one who's sick, you should not be preparing food. You should have support in that somebody can prepare the food for you and for the rest of the household. If you are sick with gastro, try to avoid going to work because you're putting other people at risk. So this basically is what I wanted to share with you in terms of gastroenteritis. So be aware, be vigilant, and take the necessary precautions as it relates to gastroenteritis. With us today is Mr. Onan Gervais. I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly. I'm sure he will correct me if I have said it incorrectly. He is a counseling psychologist and works with the Ministry of Health as a psychotherapist. So you'd notice that I use two different terms to describe his work. and he will be explaining to us some of the differences in some of those terms that we use. And this, as he is a mental health, we can say he's a mental health professional. But within mental health you have so many different areas. So you have the counseling psychologist, you would hear the word counselor, you'd hear psychologist, you'd hear psychotherapist, you'd hear psychiatrist, all of those terms.
He was there. He slipped away.
Did he slip away from us? I'm sure he will be back.
Hi, morning, morning.
Okay,
Okay.
so
Hey,
he will be,
I'm
first
there.
thing he's going to do is to give us a little breakdown of the difference as it relates to those terms, and also when somebody is in need of assistance, we just say, well, I think you need some help, but we don't know which of those professionals would be best suited to deal with the person's issue. So maybe he can help with that. But his main topic this morning is going to be stress management. And quite a few people have been saying that they feel very stressed. It's a term that we use loosely, but I am sure he will give us the more clinical aspect of what stress is, what the symptoms are, how to deal with it. And he's going to do that from the point of view of the workplace. So, welcome, Mr. Gilvey. I hope I'm saying the name correctly. Good morning
Yeah.
to you. Before you go into your topic, I would like you to just share a little bit about yourself with our listeners.
Okay, good morning to everyone. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we got.
I cannot hear.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm very happy to be here this morning to discuss the topic stress. But before we get into the main presentation, I'll be discussing some of the terms mentioned. In the mental health field, we have various individuals with various titles, and sometimes the clients out in the community they get confused with all the various terms and, and terminologies. So first of all, I'll start with psychiatrists. Basically, a psychiatrist is a medical doctor. So that's one, a medical doctor that is specialized in diagnosing and treating of mental conditions. So it's just like you go to your general practitioner and you have a particular symptoms, you will relate the signs and symptoms to the doctor, and he will send you to do the various tests to confirm whatever suspicion he might have, and the various tests will give him the concrete evidence he have to make that diagnosis. So the same with the psychiatrist. You will come in, you will relate your signs and symptoms. He might send you to do the various blood works. But you might say, I'm going to a psychiatrist, why I have to go and do all those various blood tests? Sometimes you have to rule out a medical condition, especially when it comes to mental health. Because a lot of medical conditions do have symptoms of a mental condition. So the psychiatrist will send you to do those various blood works to rule out any medical condition, whether diabetes, whether it be hypertension, maybe kidney issues. No, just to rule out any medical, and then he can make a mental or a psychiatric diagnosis. So after you have done the diagnosis, he'll put you on treatment, meaning he'll give you medication. Usually, psychiatrists do not do psychotherapy, although they can do it. But because there are other professionals in that field, they leave it for the other professionals to do. But a psychiatrist can do psychotherapy. Okay? And psychotherapy is just talking therapy. That's what it is. Talking therapy is psychotherapy. Okay, so we get down now to counselor, psychotherapist.
I wish you would not move away so quickly when you say talking
Yes.
therapy. What do you mean by talking therapy? Because sometimes when people have issues and they go to a counselor or a psychotherapist, the expectation might not be exactly the service that would be given. So, for example, people might go in with the expectation that they will receive advice. Is that what the talking therapy is about?
Okay, so talking therapy is an interaction between two individuals, so the client and the professional. Generally, if you read a definition of what's a counselor, it will tell you one of the terms is to give advice. But generally, that is not the role of a counselor or a psychologist or even a psychotherapist. In giving advice, is okay. The client expect, okay, I come to the counselor or the psychotherapist. I sit down there and they'll tell me how to live my life. We don't do that. So what we do, there's an exchange in the process. The client speaks. He tells the situation, and the counselor or the psychotherapist or the psychologist listens, and then there is that exchange, that exchange between the client and the professional. So we don't give advice. We examine, we explore, we look for the pros, the cons, the positive, the negatives. When the professional have gathered all the information, it's up to the client now to make that decision. Now, take for example, if the professional tells the client, okay, they're having issues with, let's say, with the meet, whether it be a boyfriend or husband, girlfriend, and the professional say, okay, he's beating you, he's cheating on you, I want to leave him. No, that man is not good for you, leave him. And then they take the advice and they leave the individual. The client can always turn and say, my counselor told me to leave you. So the client has not taken no responsibility for the action. But in the discussion now, when all the information is on the table, then the client makes that decision. Do I want to stay in the relationship or do I want to go? So they make that decision with all the information given to them. The counselor will never tell them to go or to stay. They have all the evidence in front of them and they make the decision, because they have to live with the consequences, whether it's negative or positive. They have to live with the decision that they make. So the counselor will never tell you, yes, do this or do that. So we discuss, we examine, we explore, but the client have to make the decision at the end.
And really and truly, when a client goes to a mental health professional, there is there's a saying that change only happens when that client makes a decision to change. So basically, the psychotherapist or the counselor cannot make whatever change he or she may feel is necessarily actually take place unless there is buy-in. The client has come to that realization, him or herself. True?
Exactly, yes. Because many individuals believe I go to the counselor or I go to the psychologist and they have to change me. Well, we cannot change nobody. You can come to counseling for 100 years, and nothing will not take place until you have made up your mind that yes, I want to make that change in my life. So the counselor, the psychologist, we just there to facilitate the process.
And when you say to facilitate the process, um, would you uh, would you agree that you providing a safe space for this person to speak about their issues? Because one of the things, one of the challenges out there in society is that people tend to not be able to confide in those around them. So the mental health professional, in as much as you are listening, you are also providing that safe space and the level of confidentiality that would allow the person to freely express whatever issues and challenges they are experiencing.
Yes, exactly. And these are some of the terms that is discussed in the very first session, making the client know that whatever is being discussed is confidential. It does not leave the room except, and then we have to give them the limitations also, because there are limitations to the confidentiality. If the client expressed something where his or her life is in danger, or somebody else's life is in danger, and they express that in the counseling session, we have to report. But we let them know that beforehand, so they know exactly what they are expressing, because it's
And do you
it's
tell them who you
unethical. It's
report to?
unethical. Yes, because it's unethical to allow a client to start expressing things and they do not know the limits of confidentiality, and then you report that matter to a secondary source, and then the client will say, but you never informed me that that information will be going out. So as the counselor, as the psychologist, you inform them beforehand, the very first session, so they have all the information at hand.
Wonderful. So,
Okay.
whilst we before we go into the stress management, are there any other differences you'd like to point out in terms of the names of the various mental health professionals that we
Yes.
mentioned
So the
previously?
term so the term psychotherapist, as I said, is the term. Psychiatrist, which is the medical doctor, can also be a psychotherapist. A counselor can also be a psychotherapist. A mental health nurse can also be a psychotherapist. A social worker can also be a psychotherapist. Remember, psychotherapists, what they do, talk therapy. But some persons, they actually go more in depth, and they have that term labeled for them as a psychotherapist. But any of those professionals who render talk therapy, they are a psychotherapist in that sense. So, for example, my qualifications is as a psychologist, a counseling psychologist. But as I said, with the Ministry of Health, I am a psychotherapist. So it's just that psychologists, we do the same thing, but as a psychologist, I go more in depth. So I do diagnosis of mental conditions, just like the psychiatrist. So I can diagnose a mental condition. My treatment will be different. My treatment will be more of treatment planning, where I do coping skills and help change behavior. We do not prescribe medication. So that's the main difference. So a psychologist cannot prescribe medication while a psychiatrist can. But what we do what we call psychological testing. So the psychological testing is like the clients go to the lab to do the blood works to diagnose a condition. The psychologists do psychological testing to confirm a diagnosis. So sometimes the psychiatrist might send the client to see a psychologist to confirm a diagnosis of maybe depression or maybe anxiety. So we confirm diagnosis by doing psychological testing. Counselors, they do not do that. They do not diagnose conditions, mental conditions.
Okay. So, with the psychologist, since you said you do not prescribe medication, in the event that a client were to come to you and you arrive at a certain diagnosis which may require medication, would you refer the client?
Yes, then we
Okay.
refer the client to the psychiatrist just to get the medical aspect of it done, which is the medication, but the treatment continues with us.
Because usually there, well, not usually, but there are some mental health conditions where the treatment would require both pharmaceutical, so
Medication and
yeah,
well,
medication and your talk therapy,
psychotherapy.
right?
Right, right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I just want the listeners to understand that every condition is not the same. The treatment would not be the same. The approach would not be the same. So, with the psychologist, in terms of your testing, what sort of testing would you do in order to arrive at a diagnosis of a psychological disorder?
Okay, so the testing will be more of a, how I put it, more of a cognitive. It's paper and pen. So we don't use injections. We don't take blood. We don't do none of those things. So it's like when you are at primary secondary school, we have a list of questions. It can be multiple choice or true and false questions. But it's about 400 or 500 questions. We ask that question. There's no right or wrong answer, but when the client answer all the questions, then we can tell, because the way the questions are arranged, we can tell if the client is actually just guessing or just lying. Because sometimes we ask the same question 20 times, but 20 different ways, and we can see that the client is answering, the theme is the same, but they're giving different answers for each of the 20 questions. So in doing those kind of testing, we can arrive at a conclusive confirmation of a diagnosis.
Okay. But is there really any way for the client to say cheat?
Yeah, they can't cheat, but we'll find out because the way the question is arranged, we'll know. We'll know if they are just circling any letter without reading the question. Because sometimes the same question is asked in different ways. So sometimes if they're just circling C or D, it will come out.
Okay. Now
Because
I
the
have
questions
to
are
I
designed.
okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I see the questions are designed in that way. So question one might be something on anxiety, refers it one way, and question 10 will ask that same question using a different scenario, but the theme is the same. And you'll find that the client will answer it a different way, not realizing is that that's the same theme we are looking for, but they'll answer it a different way. So these are the little things that we look for in those kind of tests.
Okay. Now I must say that I heard you say 400 questions. That sounds very daunting.
Yes,
It
it is. It is 400 questions.
So how do you break it into parts? Do you do it all at once?
All at once. Usually it takes an hour to complete.
But I must
Just
say,
one hour. So
clients might get tired. That's why they might just circle anything.
yeah, it just takes 1 hour.
But I was just thinking of, an hour, you saying the same question, how many different times? You already don't want to be there. Sometimes, you have those sort of patients. But anyway, thank you so much for all the explanations, for defining the different terms. I hope the listening public has a better idea now of the services that are being offered through the various mental health professionals. Now, I'm going to ask you, maybe take a break.
No, like if
No.
somebody want to make a contribution, they can
Okay.
send us a message via WhatsApp. 7305388. Again, the number 7305388.
Thank you, Ulan. Wonderful. Now, that is a very interesting discussion, but because our main topic is stress management, I see the time is quickly
Is
going
going,
by.
yes,
Yes, so
yes.
maybe we should have just decided to work with that one area for the day. But let's go into our main topic, which is stress management. And I guess you will start off by telling us what stress is and so.
Okay. Okay. First of all, let me ask you a simple question. If I can tell you that I will take you someplace right now where you will not have not one worry in the world, you have no stress, would you want to come with me?
I'll let Ulan answer that question.
Of course.
No stress, no worries, no pain.
Of course.
You want to
You
come with
go.
me?
When I want to go, I don't know if it's with you.
I
Okay.
think I know where
So
that question is leading. That's why I let
it's
Ulan answer the
leading,
question.
right?
Yes.
because the only place on earth, that is so tranquil and so peaceful, and the individuals in there have no stress, no anxiety, nothing at all, is the cemetery.
Nice one. That's a nice one.
Yes. So when you are dead, you have no stress. So as long as you are living, you will have stress in your life. But the thing about it, stress in moderation is good. It's a good thing. We have to have stress in our life. Without stress, we will be dead. So you have to have stress in your life. So persons might ask, okay, so what is stress? We always hear that term, stress. I had a stressful day. These kids are giving me stress. But what is the whole concept of stress? What it is? Okay, so a definition is a perceived threat. So it's a perceived threat. It can be real, meaning it's happening now, something present, something that you live through, maybe a accident, a medical condition, some financial issue, or it can be imagined. So it's in your thoughts. You're thinking about it. You're thinking about a situation, an issue that affects one mental, emotional, physical, or spiritual well-being. So we see that it tackles the entire body, our emotional, our mental, our physical, and our spiritual well-being. It is the physiological response that is activated when the mind perceives a threat. So as long as the mind perceives a threat, we can consider that okay, the body is gearing up for a battle, and there is some stress in the atmosphere, if you want to put it like that. The body is getting ready to fight or to run away from some kind of stressful activity. So the body follows the mind. Most of our stress and emotional suffering comes from our mind or from our thoughts. The majority of our mental conditions in general, it occurs of how we think. A lot of persons have that negative thought pattern. Everything is a negative, negative, negative. So thinking negatively affects our entire body, and it can create the stress, the anxiety, the depression that many persons endure and experience.
I
So,
don't know if I will be putting you on the spot a little bit, but when you speak
mhm,
about a perceived threat, so say we have two individuals facing the same situation. Maybe there are okay. Maybe each person has been fired from their job.
okay, yes,
Okay,
mm-hmm,
because I know that finances is one of the things that causes quite a bit of stress. And since we're talking
mm-hmm,
workplace, so if two people have been fired, if it's a matter of perception and thought patterns, could you explain to us using individual A and individual B? They have the very same financial situation and then they are both fired. How one could be stressed and the other not?
okay. Now, both of them can be stressed there, but again, it's how they handle and how they deal with it. So let's say individual A, he's fired. He know he have his mortgage, he have different things, but he tell himself, okay, I have equipped myself enough. I went to school. I have degrees. Um, I will get back on my feet. I will get another job. So he starts the process one time, starts sending out his applications, start going to various business places to look for a job. Person B might have the same thing, also have qualifications, but he's just there. Boy, I was so great in the job, they just fire me, and he's just moping over it, moping. He's not thinking of the future. He's not thinking of his mortgage you have to pay. He's not thinking of his family you have to take care of, and he's just there moping. He's not even
Or maybe he's
starting the
thinking of that
process.
very thing. That's why he's stuck in that moping mind frame.
Yes, but you still have to send out the applications and do what you have to do to get a job. If you just sit down in that same place just moping, nothing will not come his way. So perspective is one, how you look at the situation. So yeah, so both of them got fired. Both of them are under stress, but how they deal with the stressful event will make the difference.
Okay. So when we talk about stress, usually when we talk about bad stress, really, we're talking chronic, so a little more long term. So it's not just as it happens. So over a period of time, over the 3 months after they were fired, positive positive Mr. A has sent out all his applications and nothing yet. And negative Mr. B hasn't sent out anything and still nothing yet. So at that point, because we have a lot of
And
people
that
going through those situations, at that point,
mhm.
how does one manage stress in a way that it is not so detrimental, it doesn't have such a big negative impact on them?
Well, you are making me jump forward because I had that also in the presentation, but let me deal with
Oh,
it
oh,
now.
I'm so sorry. Well,
So,
you know what? You go
but
ahead.
that's okay.
You go ahead with
But
your
this
line.
is, but just let me think right now. Sometimes it's the various coping mechanisms. So maybe individual A, his wife might be supportive, his kids supportive, telling him all the correct reinforcement that we know you have sent other applications, nothing yet, but no, hold on there, no, something will come on, be patient. While B now, after he's suffering from all this stress, he's getting more stress from his wife and his kids. No, so again, it's the coping mechanisms and the environment, all that will play a lot in it also. All right,
Okay,
but
I'm
we'll be
glad you
coming to
mentioned
the chronic,
environment as well.
right? So we'll be coming to the chronic one just now. But let's get an
Okay.
understanding of what is a stressor. A stressor. A stressor is an event or the situation that causes us to adapt or to initiate the stress response. So the event or the situation. Now you know having getting going on vacation can be stressful. Getting a promotion can be stressful. Planning a wedding can be stressful. All these are the events or the situations that activate the stress response. Now, stressors can be negative or positive, but our body will still have the same stress response. So imagine that whether the stressor is positive or negative, our body will react the same to it. A stressor is the stimulus and the stress is the response. So the stress is the response. The stress is what exactly we go through when the stressor is activated. So the stressor is okay. We are planning a wedding. That's the event. A wedding. It's very stressful. So that's the stressor. A lot of persons have the two terms confused. The stressor, which is the event or the situation, and the stress response. You want
Okay.
any more clarity in that one there?
No, I think we that should be clear enough in terms of what a stressor is. Maybe some people may not have related such positive events. Sometimes people don't relate things. I mean, maybe a wedding, planning a wedding, yes, because it involves so many different things that you need to take care of. But maybe when you mention the vacation, people are like, going on vacation,
Yeah.
stressful.
Vacation, stressful? Yes. But that's what we call the good stress. So it's positive stress, but it's still stressful. Yes, it's positive stress. Okay, so some of the signs and symptoms of the stress response, what actually occurs in our body. So the pulse and the heartbeat quickens. And that one should be obvious because now our body is under stress, so our heart starts racing a little faster, our pulse starts going a little faster. The fatty acids and the oxygen increases in the blood supply. Our capillaries constrict. The blood clots more easily. Our pupils dilate. Our mucous membranes, it shrinks. Our bowels and bladder empties. I don't know if persons ever realize that persons who are under extreme stress. That's why sometimes they have emotion and they're not even aware of it because now they are under stress. The bowels have to empty, the bladder have to empty. So sometimes they have emotion. Our perspiration increases, digestion and reproduction stops. So at that point, all the blood is not going into those areas anymore. Our immune system shuts down. That's why persons who are under tremendous stress always they have a flu, they have a cold, they are prone to getting some kind of condition because our immune system is shut down. Right now, the immune system is not no longer fighting infection because it's dealing with something else. So persons who are under severe stress, they are prone to get illnesses because of that reason. The immune system is shut down. Okay.
I'm sure
Now,
quite a few people can
so the
relate to that.
you're right, yes. So now, good stress, or the term that is used is your stress, is the same word stress with just EU in front of it. And they say that stress it makes you feel motivated, it inspires you, it gives you that energy to perform your tasks. So that's the good stress that we need more of. And as I said earlier on, total absence of stress is death, too little stress is boredom. So if you have no stress in your life, it is death. You will die. And too little is boredom. So you have to have stress in your life for you to be motivated to achieve and to accomplish things. It is when the stress is too much that's when it starts affecting the body. Okay, so bad stress or distress. It is short, occasionally episodes. Also, it's a short, occasional episodes of stress. So it is not long lasting. Usually, it lasts 20 to 40 minutes, but it's very intense.
So can we get
Unlike
an
chronic
example?
stress, which
Can we get an example of this
of acute
stress
stress,
or that short period of time that would?
a simple one, an argument between spouses in the heat of the moment in the quarrel, temperatures goes up, both parties are quarreling, screaming, talking at the top of their voices. It is very intense. And then when maybe one party just go in the room and close the door, or the other one go for a walk, the stress levels goes down because the two persons are not in that interaction anymore.
Okay, thank you.
Or another example I can think of, another one might be you almost got yourself into an accident on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So sometimes, let's say you driving and then the other driver is coming head on, and for some reason you manage to get yourself off the road. So for that few minutes you just in the car, and sometimes your hands is stiff on the steering wheel. You cannot move as yet. That's a very high level of stress. Yes.
Okay.
It's like the adrenaline in the body is so high, and then the body have to come down back to baseline. Okay, so that's another example of it.
Okay. Thank you. So now we're going to be speaking a
But
bit
chronic
about
stress
chronic
now, chronic
stress.
stress, right? Chronic stress, on unrelenting stress, a long-term stress resulting from those nagging issues that just do not seem to go away. events that are so intense, events that are not, sorry, so intense, but seems to last forever, days, weeks, months, or years. And a good example again is marriage. You know, sometimes they always say the wife is always nagging, 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 or we have a nagging husband. And that stress is always there. Every time I come home, is a nagging, 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 nagging. So as I said, it's unrelenting, it's long term. The issue is always there, and day in and day out is the same issue over and over and over. That's what we call chronic stress. It's not intense, but it is prolonged.
Okay. Well, since we're going to be talking about stress within the workplace and the management of that stress, I think maybe we can use an example related maybe to somebody who may be working and the salary is quite low and having to manage financially on a low salary and all the things that have to be taken care of. That could be considered chronic stress as well, right?
Yes, yes, because they have it also goes back to perspective because somebody can be making a little salary, and yet they are managing that salary and managing the household, and they are living comfortably. Yeah. So again, it's perspective.
I'm not sure if I would say it's completely perspective. There are certain realities
Mm-hmm.
that we deal with. So, for example, if we look at somebody making $800 a month, the rent is $500 a month. You have two children, you have bills. I'm not sure how comfortably you can manage unless you have support from elsewhere. So
Okay.
these are some of the issues. I bring it up because it's one of the issues that has been recurring. When I'm out there,
Mm-hmm.
there are people who don't even want to listen to a presentation on anything health related because one guy actually said to me, "You just come in and talk, 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 talk. Is money stress I have." Okay,
Now,
so we have to try we have to try to relate to the realities of what people are experiencing.
yes, I get where you're coming from, but that same example, the rent is $400. I'm making $800 right monthly. Then I try to look for a place, maybe in reality, because rent is quite expensive too. But I try to get a place where I can rent maybe at 250. Although you tell me right now you can get no place at 250, but you look around.
Mhm.
No, so you try to make your entire situation fit your salary. Sometimes
Right.
it cannot work because of the reality, as you said, that we live in. Yeah, but some
Yeah, but
persons,
I like that
I
you
don't know,
brought up that.
deliberately,
Mhm. I
yeah, because
am.
that's a good example of somebody coming into counseling, and let's say that's the
Mhm.
main issue, that the
Mhm.
salary is that amount, and everything is going up. They have two kids, and they just cannot survive on that. So with me now as a counselor, we have to brainstorm and see how we can get everything into that $800. And sometimes compromises will have to be made.
Exactly.
Yes. Mm.
So I'm glad you brought that up because sometimes when you are in the situation, you are not able to think of other possibilities beyond what is causing you the stress. So if the person comes to you as a counselor or psychotherapist, maybe you while you discuss you between the two of you, you can start thinking about other possibilities. So I would imagine that during that interaction you would be speaking about, oh, in a situation like that, do you have family members who could assist? Do you have a family member who may have an extra room? Is are there possibilities that for the next 6 months you could move in with
Mm-hmm.
that person? And those sort of things that maybe because you are in the situation, you cannot really just think of on your own.
About it, right? Yes, and sometimes with that same example again, sometimes you might have to tell them the hard truths that they don't want to hear. Because your salary is $800, but yet every carnival season you want to go and jump up and buy a costume that costs in 2 grand.
Mm-hmm.
So and sometimes these are the negative thought patterns that persons have. So you have to bring all those things to their attention. You want to have internet, and you want to take the one at the most expensive, when you can take one that just enough to for your kids to surf the net to do the assignments, but you want the one with the highest speed for you to know, maybe download your movies or do different things. So these are the things sometimes you have to bring to the attention. And sometimes they don't want
One.
to hate, they don't want to hate, but you have to bring it to their attention.
But that's
Yeah.
what talking therapy is all about. It has to be open on and honest. So if you have a client come in, they may not want to hate, but these are the issues that have to be brought out very openly and without judgment. Correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes.
So, in terms of work stress and stress management within the workplace, I guess maybe money is not the issue that you really wanted to deal with. I don't know. Maybe you were looking at relationships within the workplace or just the work itself. So we have a few minutes left. So I'm going to ask you, just to move the presentation into that specific
That
area.
right.
Mhm.
Yeah. So first of all, job stress. Job stress can be defined as the harmful physical and emotional responses that occur when the requirements of the job do not match the capabilities, resources, or the need of the worker. Because a lot of times employers hire persons and they do not give them the necessary equipment they need to do the job. That alone can cause stress.
That is very true.
Okay, so sometimes, and right now, we handle a lot of health and safety now in the workplace, and that's a big thing. A lot of office spaces have mold, and that's a major condition. You cannot work in a place where the air quality is so poor that every time I have a headache or have something. I cannot be a fisherman working for you, going out there, and yet you have not given me the necessary safety things I need. A radio in case I go out there, I get lost. I can communicate. A compass, those various things. So if I do not have the equipment to do the job efficiently, it will cause stress. And we're not even talking about finances there yet. We're not talking about pay yet. We are just talking about the basic things to get the work done.
So how do you
Sometimes
deal
some
with that
some
stress when
employers,
these issues are outside of your control? The
well,
provision
that's
of
why
resource.
sometimes that's why you have to have a very strong union. So be part of a union and let the union take it up. But the smaller jobs out there, the persons are not represented in a union. Let's take example, the person that maybe they're working as a maid. The job can be stressful. Imagine that my job is just to take care of you. I'm there to sleep at night, and if something comes up, to help you. But because you are not sleeping, I have to stay up with you also. That can be stressful.
Yes,
Okay, so
because
sometimes
it
it's
is
not
actually very
always.
important.
Yeah, so it's not always sometimes the finance that causes the stress, but the climate, the environment can also lead to stress. And as I said, job stress can lead to poor health and even injury. Okay. Um, a study was done 5 years ago. That's some statistics from the States. 25% of employees perceive their job as the number one stressor in their life. 75% of employees believe workers now have more on the job stress and demands than they did a generation ago. And I guess reason for that is we spend more of our time where on the job.
Yes, between getting to work, being at
So we
work,
get
and
we
getting
get
home. Yes.
work exactly. Yes, yes. Because before, person would say finance was a major stressor in life, relationship issues, but now another person are saying it's on the job that causes stress for them.
So how do we cope with all of that, with that increased stress in the workplace? As workers, how do
Okay.
we deal with, how do we manage that stress?
Okay, we get to the management. Just now, before we go to the management, let me deal with some of the causes of job stress. Worker individual characteristics, so personality, it plays an issue there. We all have various personalities when we come to the workplace, and communication, our coping style, how we deal with our co-workers. Sometimes we say one thing with the spoken word, but our body language says something totally different. So how do we cope with those things? As I said, working conditions, discrimination in the workplace, little or no control over your job, mismanagement of resources, physical environment, economic conditions. All this causes stress on the job. Now the question is, how do we manage it now? Take responsibility for improving your own physical and emotional well-being. So first thing, you take responsibility for yourself. And if everybody take responsibility for themselves now, as a collective now, it will be much better. But if everybody is watching on somebody else to do something, to take up the responsibility, nothing will not be done. And as I said, physical and emotional. So sometimes, no, imagine that you have been sitting at a desk for 8 hours a day. No movement. Sometimes the most you do is to walk to go to the printer, or walk to go to the restroom. So, but the whole day you have been sitting. So in the afternoon, you don't have to go and pay a gym, but no, half an hour's walk around your neighborhood to get the blood circulating and to be active. All that will help you both physically and emotionally, because it will lessen your stress levels of the day and bring it down. Another thing that individuals can do after having a very hectic day, instead of carrying all that negative energy with them at home, you take 15 or 20 minutes before you reach home. So maybe you park your vehicle by the beach, and you just watch the waves as it breaks on the shore. You decompress yourself before you go home. Because guess what? If not, sometimes you snap at your wife, the kids, even the pets, because all that negative energy you have with you carry it home with you, and you pass it on to everybody. And it happens a lot. Person takes home that negative energy from the workplace. Yeah, so it's wise to decompress yourself, take 15, 20 minutes. And some persons, they do cope by either going to know the favorite watering hole. They go for 1, 2 drinks. It is a coping mechanism, but it's not the best, or it's not a healthy coping mechanism. But it is a coping mechanism, eh? But it's not a healthy one. So that's one way. Another one is to avoid the pitfalls before it occurs. Learn better communication skills, breathing techniques, take a break, take a walk, both mental and a physical break. Plan and prioritize your day. Schedule a checkup or a back burner time. So even at work, you can take some time just to take a mental break. No, you have been doing a activity that is very stressful. You just kind of concentrate. No, you take 10 to 20 minutes just to clear your mind, relax yourself, and then you get back to it. That short little time does wonders, and you find yourself more energetic to complete the task. Limit distractions. Don't overcommit yourself. Make friends that work. Now that one is the tricky one. Make friends that work. I think the workplace have the most enemies. Person pretend to be your friend. They don't know all in your business, but they're just there to see how they can get you behind your back. Okay? So with that one, it's good to have friends, but be mindful. Because the workplace is a very competitive environment.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Everybody's for themselves. Everybody wants a promotion. Everybody wants the boss to like them. Everybody wants to know, want to achieve. So you choose your friends, practice random acts of kindness. That one goes and ask for help. So these are ways that you can help reduce the stress in the workplace. Then for the
Wonderful.
more serious one, yeah, for the more serious one, then you actually if your workplace have a APA section where they have counselors, you're going to see your counselor. If not, you might have to put your hands in your own pocket and pay to see a private one. But in St. Lucia, through the Ministry of Health, every health center you can access the mental health team. It's free of charge,
So, could
and
you
that's
tell
where
us a
I am.
little bit more about accessing your services or the psychotherapy services within the public health sector?
Yes,
So,
so
for
every
example,
single
where
health
are
center.
you on what days and so on?
Okay, so I am more in the north. That is from Bextor to Grosile. But I still service the entire island. I service the entire island. So sometimes if Soufre needs me to come down to do a presentation or to see clients, I avail myself. I go down to Soufre or Vieux or Miku. But I'm more situated in the north of the island.
And in the absence of speaking to you as a psychotherapist, since you said that the mental health nurses can also do psychotherapy, would you recommend that people, at least initially, go to the mental health nurse?
Yes, yes, that's what they are there for. So the mental healthness is the first step, and if it's a situation that is beyond the scope, then they refer. Because there are some situations that even the community healthness can deal with. There are some situations, sometimes the client just needs somebody to listen to them. It's nothing serious, and the mental healthness can do that. But if it's something that is much more intense, then they refer to the psychotherapist.
Wonderful. I think our time is up, Mr. Gouvet. I want to thank you for coming on the program this morning. And in as much
Thank you very
as
much.
your main topic was a little bit rushed because we got so much into the first part of it, I think it was all well laid out. And I hope that the listening public could pick up from what you said to understand the differences between among the various mental health professionals and what the expectations that they have vis-a-vis what actually happens in a counseling session. Also, we spoke about work stress and the management of stress. Maybe hopefully we can go a little deeper into it on another program. We do have some other slots during the year for mental health that we can go in a little bit more
Okay.
detail, because I think it is an area that is challenging for
Yes.
many people. And when you walk around and work around in the communities, it's one of those issues that comes up all the time. So I think maybe we can spend a little bit more
Yes.
time with that in on another program. I'm so happy that you mentioned the
No
moving
problem.
about as a way of managing stress. And I would just like to remind our listeners that the Ministry of Health does have the St. Lucia Moves campaign. So you see, everything is tied in. For mental, physical,
Mhm.
emotional well being, we really need to get up and move. So it does not have to be 2 hours at the gym. 5 minute walk, break it up throughout the day, get your 30 minutes. If you cannot get 30 minutes, 15 minutes is better than none. So let's get up and move, St. Lucia. Thank you, Mr. Gervais, and thank you to our listeners for tuning in to Casualty 911.
Thank you very much. Most welcome.
Casualty 911, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. with the consultant. Health is not merely the absence of diseases. It is your social, economic, physical, spiritual, and mental well-being. Just imagine you on 88.5 Sufra FM, talking, questioning, sharing your experience, information, education, entertainment, news.